Professor Hancock, we are very honored and happy that we have a chance to have this interview with you here in Prague for Roma and Sinti Center in Prague, the branch of Museum of Romani Culture. It's May 2023. We are here in occasion of 25th World Festival Khamoro here in Prague. And I would like to start in the past and ask about your family background and about your family heritage and how it shaped your identity of being Roma, if you can say yes.
Well, first of all, let me say it is a huge pleasure for me to be with you, to be back in beautiful Prague. So it's just a delight for me. And to see what we are capable of producing, it's amazing. The world doesn't know enough about what we are capable of when things are equal and we don't have other priorities. For me, I have a double background. One is from the Romungre people on my father's side. They were in the area not so far from here, called Mosonmagyarovar in Hungary. And those families, the family name was Benci. They left, a lot of Roma left in the 19th century from the Austro-Hungarian time. Many went to America, but some went also to England and France. And my grandfather married a Romnichal woman. These are English Romani people. So it's a mixture. I was born there. I was born in London. I was not involved politically in any way as a small boy. We knew that we were not Gaje, but we lived in a house and had a big family also. My grandfather's sister, my aunt, and her husband had a wagon, but we never lived in wagons. So when I was, let me see, this is in the 1960s, there was a news item in the newspaper about a Romani family who lived on the road, who had been pulled over to the side of the road by the police. They had stopped, and the police found them stopped and wanted them to move, because at that time in Britain, you were not allowed, if you were a Romani person, you could not just stop. You had to stay on a reservation that the government created, and there were very few for the whole of Britain. And there was a confrontation, and a child died because of this. And it got a very small piece in the newspaper. But I saw that, and it did something to me, because first of all, they were Romani people who were breaking a law, but the law, there was no compassion in the law. And I thought, what if they were relatives of mine? What if it had been us? And I became so angry, but I didn't know what to do with my anger. So I looked in the London telephone directory, big 4 fat volumes, but I looked up gypsy. And there was the Gypsy Education Council with a telephone number. And I called the number and I was invited to meet them. And I met people who were involved internationally. And I met some Gaje who were very supportive also. And I had also started to attend the University of London. I was able to be accepted as a minority because there was a program, an experimental program created by the socialist Prime Minister Harold Wilson. It didn't last very long, but I benefited from that, and one other person, an African man, also benefited. And so I was able to get an education at London University and get a PhD. And so these people at the Education Council were saying, so few of our people have PhDs. You have to be involved. It's not a choice. You have an obligation as an educated, I say gypsy, that's what they said, to speak out. And so in 1971 there was the first World Romani Congress, and I went to that. And then I met some of the big names. The location for that was moved at the last minute because there were threats to disrupt the First World Romani Congress. And so a secret location had to be circulated, and we went to this place, and that's when I really got involved. So then I got a job. My academic area was in Creole societies and languages, and I was offered a job in Texas. I didn't apply to Texas. I applied to lots of places, but not Texas. But ironically, it was Texas that offered me this job, and I taught there for 46 years. And I don't know if you have here the tenure system. The tenure system is you are taken on to teach at the university, but unless you are promoted to a professorship or to be a professor, then you after 6 years you don't stay. If you get tenure, then you have security for your life. But until I got tenure, I didn't talk about my background, because when I was at the University of London, my supervisor told me, don't say you're a gypsy. It won't help you. Academically, it won't help you. He was trying to give me good advice. But that sort of advice is painful, but he didn't mean it in a bad way. He thought he was being supportive. So when I got tenure, I then went to the chairman of the department and said, I want to teach a course about gypsies. This is the only word they know back then. And because it was an English department, they said, yes, you can teach a course about the gypsy image in literature. So I put some notes together and I thought, this is good because I can use this topic as a doorway to talk about a lot of other things besides literature. And when they announced this new course, so many students signed up for it to be in my class. And some of them came dressed like Esmeralda and Carmen and, bare feet, beads and everything. But when they discovered that it was a very serious course, and it was about history and geography and religion and culture and language and prejudice and genocide, I lost a lot of students because they were expecting something very different. And this is what we were just talking about now. In the United States, the average person thinks that gypsy is a behavior and not an ethnic people. You can be a gypsy. You just dress up and dance around. And so that has always and still is a real problem that we have. More in America, perhaps, than in Europe. The Romani population in the United States is huge, but they don't look like Hollywood gypsies. They look like regular people, and if they are darker, they think they are Mexicans. If they are like me, they think they're white. And you can hide because there are so many different ethnic and racial groups in America. You can hide very easily, pretend that you're something else. So that's how I got into it.
And may I ask, you described the outline you said you saw in newspapers at the beginning. How old were you when you saw that?
I must have been 23, 24, okay. Something like that, 24. Okay.
So I expect that after that, when you get in touch with this education department, then it really evolved kind of quickly, the journey you make to international Romani movement and to your education.
Yes, and then I went to different congresses and met different people. And at that time, before 1989, it was the Roma in Eastern Europe who had the loudest voice and were most organized. Although I think the impetus really came from Western Europe, with people like Vanko Roda and early people like that, because the Romani Union really developed out of the International Romani Committee and so on. So there was a lot of moving about and different names and different people. And it was the Quick people, family especially, who pushed for recognition, survivors from the Holocaust. Even they tried in Poland to make a king of all the Roma, and that was taken seriously in the news, but it didn't last. And the Holocaust destroyed everything. But then after the Holocaust, the people in France who tried to resurrect what they had started in the 1930s, President de Gaulle made it Romani political organizations illegal. It didn't stop anybody, but when you are breaking the law, you find ways around that. So much happened since then, but I was now in America, not in Europe. Although I would come to Europe as often as possible, but I wasn't directly involved. I became more involved with the North American situation, and tried very hard to educate the general public about who we really are. And the course that I started to teach, which still was full, the classroom was full every time. And as the years went by, the students became more serious, because with the revolution, Romani issues became part of the media coverage more. And so people were beginning to realize, well, these are real people with problems, not Hollywood musicians and magicians and all of that. So I had some good students who went on to work with the Open Society and here and there. But then the President Carter, created the United States Holocaust Memorial Council. It had already been created, but we, the Romani population, we didn't know it was there until somehow, did you know there's a United States Holocaust Memorial Council? And I said, well, are we in it? No. So I was not an American citizen. At that time, my citizenship was British and EU. It's not EU anymore because Britain moved out. But at the time, I could, it was just a great passport to have. But I was not an American. And we complained that there was no representation of the Romani victims of genocide, because the statement when the Holocaust Memorial Council was created, the statement expressly said something like, to commemorate the most terrible thing that human beings can do to other human beings, which is genocide. And it's that word, genocide. So I thought, well, some genocides obviously are worth more than other genocides, which means some human beings are worth more than other human beings. And this is wrong, especially since the United States Holocaust Memorial Council is a federal body supported by American taxpayers, including Romani American taxpayers. So we were supporting a federal body, which didn't represent us, but they were happy to take our tax money. So there was a lot of activity. There was protest marches in Washington with the little Holocaust uniforms on, the concentration camp. And there was a senator who spoke up for us, and they looked around for somebody, and the only educated Romani man that they could find who was an American was a teacher, a music teacher from Minneapolis called William Dunya. He actually comes from the Bashalde Roma, from here. Duna, Gina, all those names over there. That is quite a big group, the Bashalde. Or they call themselves also Hungarian Slovak Roma. That's what they call themselves also. But he did not have any background about the genocide. And he couldn't talk about it. And also, he was treated very badly on the council. The council is 65 members. In terms of percentage, we lost about the same percentage of our total number in Europe, or in Nazi-controlled Europe, as the Jews did. So we should really have equal representation. But out of 65, there was just one. And some of those members had nothing to do with the Holocaust. There was an Armenian member because of the Armenian genocide. There was an African American member because of racism, but not a single Romani person. It was disgusting. And I started to write about this. I started to research, get the details, because the strongest weapon that we have is the truth. You cannot hide the truth. You know, there is a proverb in our language. It says, the man who is about to tell the truth must have his foot in the stirrup. You know what is stirrup? When you get on a horse, you put your foot in and climb on. Yeah. So if you're going to tell the truth, you better get ready to run. And really, by telling the truth, you get attacked. And I've been attacked all the time for speaking out. But the more that the details of the genocide become generally known, the more difficult it is for people to hide it, because it starts to make them look bad. And that's what's happening. So that's why I do a lot of writing in this area.
I would like to ask you, when we were talking about the Holocaust, I found in literature that you are the one of the authors who started coining the term like the poramos for Holocaust. Later in the literature, I could see there are some like disagreement, or somebody is trying to change or to use another term like kalitrash or the samudaripa. Would you like to more explain us what was for you the motivation of the word like the poramos?
First of all, we need a word for it. Whatever the word is, we have to agree. Now there have been about 6 or 7 different words suggested for the genocide. Poramos, that word came up when I was in Romania some years ago. We were sitting in a birto talking about this. What's a good word? What's a good word? And somebody said poramos. Also, this word was in a dictionary, handwritten or a typed out dictionary by Ronald Lee from Toronto. And he got it from somebody called Russell Dimitro. So the word's been around quite a bit. I like the word because it means to wolf down, to devour in a hungry way. it also has a metaphorical meaning, which people object to, because it can also mean to violate a woman or rape. I don't personally see a problem with using that word, because rape is a horrible thing and the genocide is a horrible thing. So when people are more worried about the possible interpretation of a word than they are about mass murder, then they don't know about the Holocaust. They're just being picky. If you look in the beautiful dictionary of the Swedish Taikon dictionary, do you have that book? I mean, look up poramos and it says devour. I don't have a problem with the fact that it means rape, because when we talk to each other, we say awful things. Stuff like that, which is horrible and rude, but we say it all the time. So I think people who pick on this are just looking for something to pick on. It's a characteristic of us to argue with each other and disagree with each other. You know, if you have 3 Roma, you have 4 opinions. So if it's like with our flag. When we had our flag, somebody in Dallas complained and said, "I've made a much better flag. Look at my flag. Why do we use that flag?" When William Duna was appointed, immediately a Kadrashman in Boston sent a telegram to the White House. "Why did you choose him? Why didn't you choose me? He doesn't represent us. I represent." So this is Romani forma. That's how we are. That's how we are. So, and then a word like samudaripen, that is playing with the grammar. First of all, the person who invented that is a Gajo, and you cannot say sa and stick it on the front. Grammatically, although it happens in some dialects, but in the traditional grammar, you have endings, but you don't have prefixes. The only prefix is bi, like bach, bibach. But to put sa in front is playing, it's like creating a funny alphabet. It's a hobby for Gaje to play with our language. Anyway, those are my thoughts about that word.
Thank you very much. And when we speak about the Holocaust, I would like to ask how familiar you are with the Czech context, with the current situation, because Museum of Romani Culture was able to destroy the pig farm in Lety, and there's supposed to be a memorial in there which has started to be building now. So how familiar you are with that, and maybe what would you, and how do you see, what's your perspective from?
Well, I don't know what the current situation is. I know the pig farm was stopped, removed, but I don't know what is there now. Is it what Roma want to be there? Are you satisfied with what the country is doing about Lety?
Yeah, I would say that at this moment the memorial is like on the paper.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be start building, I think, in a few months. So the memorial will be there, and there were a lot of discussions about how it should look like, what should be there, what should not be included there. But I would say that museum really did its best to communicate it with the families of survivors, and that they were really involved within the whole process. So even though it's not easy to find, I would say, unity in terms of many details which are in there, I would say that museum really did its best to make sure that the memorial will reflect the ideas and opinions of Roma and of surviving families.